So you picked up a Leica Q3 and now you're excited to shoot some video with it. Now, some people will tell you that the Q3 wasn't designed for video, but I disagree. When you've got a camera here that's capable of doing 8K recording, you have ProRes support, L-Log, 10-bit, 422 color, that's not accidental. Leica built serious video capabilities into this camera. What is true is that it does have some limitations. But understanding how to use this camera correctly is also an obstacle. The first one being you go into the video menu to select something as simple as 4K 30, and suddenly you're hit with literally dozens of options. MOV versus MP4, C4K versus 4K. What's the deal with 29.97 versus 30? And why does the focus keep breathing when you're trying to shoot simple talking head videos? I've been shooting with the Q3 now for my review channel for about a year now. And at times I've been frustrated with the results. I recently did a jacket review video using the Q3 which is this camera here. And the amount of focus breathing that was happening had led me down a rabbit hole on how I can improve some of the settings and how to prevent some of that from happening. And then what I actually figured out is what matters most and then what you can ignore in the menus. So today I'm going to break down every video setting on this camera, explaining the quirks that'll drive you crazy if you don't know about them, and showing you exactly how to optimize for different shooting scenarios. Now, if you're comfortable shooting video, then this might not be the video for you. However, if you're new to the system or you're a newbie like me, then hopefully this will help. My goal is, by the end of this video, is that you'll know exactly what to set and then why you're setting it. So let's get into it. Okay, the first decision that you're going to have to make when you get into the video menus is either MOV or MP4. So here's what you need to know. MP4 is also known as H.265. It's a compressed 8-bit color depth or 420 color sampling. It's highly efficient, universally compatible. The files are small. They're great for quick turnarounds, basic content, social media, anything where you're not doing heavy color grading. MOV gives you an H.264 codec, 10-bit color depth, 422 color sampling, much better color information, and way more latitude in post. But these files are easily 2 to 3 times. So here's my take on this. For my videos, or what I do here, I'm sitting in my kitchen in controlled lighting. I shoot MOV. The extra color information gives me some insurance that if I need to adjust white balance or exposure in post, I can do that. And honestly, I have run big cards in here, so storage is pretty cheap. And I'd rather have the headroom in case I need to do something with it. But if you're shooting casual content, travel videos, anything where you want to upload quickly, and you're not doing serious color work, then MP4 is going to be totally fine. YouTube's going to compress everything anyway. One more thing, MOV also gives you access to ProRes, which is incredible quality, but absolute massive files. I don't use it for any kind of content that I shoot, but it's there if you need it. Bottom line, MOV for serious work, MP4 for convenience. I default to MOV just because I know I have the storage space for it. Okay, so next up, we got to talk about resolution. The Q3 gives you 5 different options, and this is where things get interesting, at least for me. First of all, you have your full HD. Now, this is going to be 1920 by 1080 is your kind of size. It's going to look great for most online content. They're smaller files, they're easier to edit. I use this if you are going to shoot any kind of slow motions. This camera will shoot up to 120 frames per second in slow motion, but the highest resolution you're going to get is going to be full HD. The next thing you're going to get into is going to be 4K, and this is going to be the default. 4K is 3840 by 2160. This is going to be where most people are going to live. It's 4 times the resolution of your full HD. YouTube loves it. It looks good on big screen TVs like I have in the back. Most computers can handle it. Your phone can even edit 4K. So this is what I'm going to shoot about 90% of my content in. And this is where things got weird for me, is there's also an option for C4K. This is a 4096 by 2160 frame. They call this Cinema 4K. It's 256 pixels wider than standard 4K. So if you're planning on cropping into that 2.39 by 1 aspect ratio where you have that cinema look, this is going to be the resolution that you want to shoot in. Then you're going to have 8K. Now, amazingly enough, the Q3, both the 43 and the 28, shoot 8K video. Now, this is a 7680 by 4320, so you have massive resolution, incredible detail. But here's the reality. A 1-minute clip is about 5 gigabytes or more, and your computer may struggle with editing it unless you have a kind of a pro workstation. For many people, this is just going to be overkill. Now, there could be use cases for it where you're shooting maybe in 8K and then you're cropping into something. But for most of us doing YouTube work, 8K right now is just not necessary. Then you have C8K. So like similar to C4K, it's just bigger. So this is C8K. This is going to be 8192 by 4320. Again, it's that kind of wider aspect ratio for kind of that movie look. Now, here's something important about 8K that the menu doesn't really make obvious. When you're recording 8K internally to the SD card, the camera's working really hard. And so if you're also outputting to an external monitor, like I am right now via HDMI at the same time, the HDMI output is going to get downscaled to 4K. So you're recording 8K to the card, but you're only seeing 4K in the preview on your monitor. So for critical focus work, that might be a potential issue for you. In 4K mode, what on the monitor is exactly what you're recording. There's no downscaling and there's no compromises. My recommendation is stick with the standard 4K unless you have a specific reason for 8K. It looks amazing and it's manageable to edit and your monitoring stays 1-for-1. Okay, the next thing you're going to have to look at is frame rates. So this is where people get confused as well. You've got numbers like 24, 30, and 60. And then when you go into the menus, you're going to see decimals like 2398, 29.97, and 59.94. So what's the deal with this? The short story is back in the 1950s when color TV was being introduced, engineers needed to add color information to the existing black and white broadcast signal without breaking old TVs. So the solution was to slow everything down by exactly 0.1 or 0.1% to make room for the color data. So here's when to use each one. 29.97 frames per second, or what we would call 30 frames per second. This is your standard TV. YouTube, most online content, it's smooth motion, it looks professional, it's totally normal. This is what I shoot all my videos in when I film. 23.98, or what most people would call 24 frames per second. This is that film look. It's more cinematic. You're going to get more motion blur. With that, it gives you that movie feel. I personally don't use 24 frames per second. Then you have 59.94 frames per second. This is a higher frame rate, or what we would call 60 frames per second. This is going to be great for slow motion video because what you can do is you can slow it down to 30 frames per second and you don't lose any kind of resolution. Also, if you're filming things that are really fast or a lot of high-speed motion, you might want to use 60 frames per second as well, just so you're capturing more information. Then you're going to have 119.88, or what would be considered 120 frames per second. This is going to be your maximum slow motion that you can do on this camera, but it's going to be only available in full HD. This is going to give you 4 times slow motion when played back at 30 frames per second. Think like very buttery slow motion, very dramatic reveals, water splashing, for example, in slow motion. That's going to be the thing you're going to find with 120 frames per second. Okay, focus breathing. So let's talk about that, or focusing just in. This is where probably the single most frustrating thing about shooting video on the Q3 is its focusing. As you saw from that jacket video I did, I used the Q3 43 and I used autofocus continuous. And that's where I think I made a mistake. So let's go over the Q3 focus modes. You have autofocus continuous. This is where the camera is constantly refocusing. It's always looking for movement. It's great for tracking moving subjects, but terrible for static talking head stuff like I was doing either outside or what I'm doing here, because it never stops hunting. Then you have autofocus single or single autofocus. This is where the camera is focusing once and it locks in. This is perfect for static subjects, but here's the problem. You need to lock focus before you start recording, which means reaching the camera to half press the shutter button. In this case here, I'm shooting about 7 feet away from the camera, so I can't reach the button. The next autofocus mode that you're going to have is going to be intelligent autofocusing, and this is what we're using now. So intelligent autofocusing automatically switches between AFS and AFC based on whether it detects movement. So when you're sitting relatively still, it locks focus like AFS. When you lean forward or you gesture, it briefly tracks you like AFC, and then it locks back down when you are still. So I've been playing around with intelligent autofocus with face detection for this video and just testing it out. And I find that most of the focus breathing is gone. The camera just locks into my face. It holds it steady and only adjusts when I actually move. Now, if you want absolute control of your focus and you can set this up correctly, then you could switch into manual focus. Then you don't have this problem at all. So the Q3 lens has a distance markings on the focus ring. And if I am sitting about exactly 7 feet from the lens, then I can turn the focus ring to align with roughly a little over 2 meters, or I can lock in focus using something that sits in this chair, for example, lock that in before I turn the camera on, and then I can go ahead and move into this spot, and it should allow you to lock in just fine, and the focus will never change. So now let's talk about audio. Really quick but important note about audio is I use the DJI Mic system with my Q3. I've done a separate video on that setup if you want the details, and it works great. But here's the catch. When you plug in a USB microphone, you lose the ability to use the Leica Photos app for remote monitoring and control. I wish that Leica would fix this, because those two connections should be separate, not the same. You have your USB inputs and then you have your Wi-Fi connection or Bluetooth, and that those two things shouldn't interfere. So for my setup, I'm using the DJI wireless mic plugged in, the wireless mic receivers plugged into the camera, and then I have an HDMI out to a VILTROX monitor, and that's what I'm doing here. So that's just something to be aware of. So here's some things that really don't matter to me, but I don't think we should ignore them either, because the camera is super capable of doing a lot of other things. So this camera can also shoot in HLG and L-Log. These are flat color profiles that capture maximum dynamic range, but look washed out and terrible straight out of camera. They require you that you color grade in post. Now, Leica does make a LUT that you can use as well, but if you really like to have control over your colors and you're experienced on how to do this, then these are the profiles that you want to shoot in. But for me, I don't use log profiles for the stuff that I do. Okay, so let me tell you exactly what settings that I'm using here, and then what I'll probably be using going forward. So for this kind of stuff where I'm inside and I'm filming on any of the Leicas, I'll be using, the file format is going to be MOV. My resolution is always going to be 4K. I'm going to be in that 3840 by 2160 resolution. I'm going to shoot at 30 frames per second or 29.97 in the camera. And my color profile is going to be standard. My focus mode is going to be the IAF, or intelligent autofocus. For the focus metering, I'm going to be using eye face body detection. For aperture, because I'm sitting close to the camera, right now I think I'm using about 5.6. And my ISO is going to be on auto, but with a maximum threshold of 32. My white balance is going to be custom. Right now I have everything set to 5500. So that should give me at least a consistent look every single time, where things aren't moving around as much, at least, hopefully not at all. And my lighting should be consistent. I typically film in the morning, so the sun's coming in this way. It is a little bit awkwardly overcast today, so I brought out all the lights, and I probably should have cranked them down just a little bit, but that's why I might look a little bit overexposed today. But in my mind, the Q3 is an incredibly capable video camera. It's got cinema level specs. It shoots 8K, 10-bit, 422, LRAW, and you can shoot in ProRes. But you don't need all of these things to get great results. For most people using this camera or content creators, the sweet spot is going to be MOV, 4K, and 30 frames per second. And I've discovered intelligent autofocus, which seems to be working pretty well, at least in this video so far. And the standard color profile is going to be good enough for most people. Now, you can use the Leica looks. You can film in black and white. You can do all kinds of things, but standard is going to work for the stuff that I do. Keep in mind, the settings matter way less than good lighting, which I think I have too much lights on today, and good audio. And then also what you're talking about. We've seen people film with their iPhones and GoPros and in their car, and it doesn't matter about the equipment necessarily, but understanding what all these settings do in this camera, and more importantly, understanding the quirks like focus breathing and HDMI downscaling and then all the USB audio trade-offs. By understanding those, that just makes you work more efficiently and then try to avoid frustration. If you've got questions about any of the things that we talked about today, or just have questions in general, leave them in the comments below. I do respond to all my comments. I hope this was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up. If you want more Q3 content and gear reviews, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bells. We have about 670 subscribers so far. I'm putting a lot more time and energy into this channel, so I'll be pumping out more content, and we're trying to grow the channel to at least 1,000. We'll see if we can get to 1,000 by the first quarter of next year. Thanks for watching. Go out and shoot some video, and we'll talk soon. Take care.